Turn your living room into a joyful, hands-free playroom with CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ. Your child sings, moves, and learns right alongside JJ and friends, all on the big screen. It's designed thoughtfully to spark speech, rhythm, and coordination through songs and active play. Try an ad-free, safe, and interactive way to make screen time part of their learning and growth. Parents love how easy it is, voice-controlled and frustration-free. Kids love every moment of singing, laughing, and playing along. It's fun for them, and it's feel-good for you. Available now in the Volley app on your smart TV. Just search Volley in your TV's app store and start your free trial of CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ today. That's CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ, available now in the Volley app on your smart TV. Search Volley and start your free trial today.
Volley.
Welcome to Homeschooling Outside the Box, the podcast that encourages and equips moms who homeschool an outside-the-box child. Hey there, I'm Cindy Renna, and this is episode 8, Nurturing Your Preschooler's Schedule. This is the last podcast in the series on preschool. I'm so excited to go through some ideas on how to schedule your preschooler's day today. So the other day, I recalled a conversation that I had with a friend when the boys were little. It was a question that had been burning in my mind for a while, and I needed to ask it. What do you do all day? I mean, with the kids, what do you do? At the time, I was a mom of twin toddlers and an infant, so believe me, there was plenty I could do. Yet every day I found myself wandering around the house haphazardly from task to task. I would cook meals, clean up messes, and try to make sleep happen for everyone. There didn't seem to be any purpose in my days, though, and I wanted to live intentionally with my littles. What I was really asking her was, what should my days look like as a mom of little ones? What I really wanted was a preschool schedule. I am a doer. This is helpful in some ways, and it's a tragedy in others. I'm constantly checking off lists in my head and need a purpose put to every moment. Even if I'm sleeping, I consider that productive because that's what I'm doing. I tend to get obsessed with progress, and I'm not the only one, I know. It's very fashionable in our day to always be moving forward, accomplish something great or small, and then on to the next thing. Charlotte Mason had some thoughts on this. Is there not some confusion of ideas about this fetish of progress? Do we not confound progress with movement, action, assuming that where these are, there is necessarily advance? Whereas much of our activity is like the waves of the sea, going always and arriving never. What we desire is the still progress of growth that comes from a root striking downwards and fruit urging upwards. And this progress in character and conduct is not attained through conditions of environment or influence, but only through the growth of ideas, received with conscious intellectual effort. That's from Towards a Philosophy of Education, her 6th volume. So progress in character is what we're after, and that comes from the inside out. It comes from ideas. It comes from focusing on being in a world that tells you to focus on doing. I've given you a lot to think about the last few weeks when it comes to nurturing your preschooler's mind, body, and soul. But let's revisit the question from earlier. Talk practicalities. What do you do all day with little ones? I've gleaned some wisdom since that phone call nearly 10 years ago, and here's what it boils down to. Little ones should come alongside you in your day to learn and grow. If you're cleaning up, they can be beside you with their own little dustpan. When you're cooking, they can be on a stool safely beside you. If you're outside in the garden, they can have their own little shovel. Little ones learn best by example. This is not to say that they should never play on their own. On the contrary, they should be allowed ample time to themselves. In this time of extraordinary pressure, educational and social, Perhaps a mother's first duty to her children is to secure for them a quiet growing time, a full 6 years of passive receptive life, the waking part of it spent for the most part out in the fresh air. And this not only for gain and bodily health alone. Body and soul, heart and mind are nourished with food convenient for them when the children are let alone, let to live without friction and without stimulus amongst happy influences which incline them to be good. Charlotte Mason from Home Education, Volume 1. Whether they are by your side or playing alone within earshot, the priority should be being, not doing. Your focus needs to be on helping your child to become, not accomplish. For this reason, there's not a whole lot your preschooler needs to be doing in his day. He has no checklist to accomplish. I love how Miss Mason says, to secure for them a quiet growing time, a full 6 years of passive, receptive life. Life is his lesson. Every day brings new ideas, and receiving them is enough. Doesn't this sound like a lovely way to spend the early years? One caution, though. Moms of boys need to substitute the word quiet for unhurried, because you and I both know there's nothing quiet about little boys. The schedule. Okay, so I've put together a sample schedule for you to use with your preschoolers. To be honest, this is a routine, not a schedule. I know, the title says schedule, but schedules can be demanding, and routines are more about your day having a flow to it. You'll notice that there are no set times, and that's intentional. I have found that focusing on activities that follow each other works much better than focusing on the clock. Excuse me, my allergies are against me today. If your preschooler has frequent challenges out in public, I recommend completely removing outings from his weekly schedule for a while, and keep your nature outings to quiet parks near the house. Most children can be overstimulated very easily, but our precious outside-the-box kiddos begin their day overstimulated before we add a thing. We must be sensitive to this, especially in these early years, and observe which environments our children do best in and remove the ones they do not do well in. So this schedule is gentle and flexible enough for all ages of preschoolers. Remember, when I'm saying preschool, I mean a child who is not yet in school. So this can work for your little infant all the way up to a 5 or 6 year old. If you have older kids that you're homeschooling, you can also modify this to fit with their school day. All right, so an example weekly schedule would be Monday, library. Tuesday, stay home. Wednesday, errands. Thursday, stay home. Friday, either a nature outing or a field trip of some sort. Notice the pattern there. You're always getting a recovery day, so you're not going one day after another. Okay, and as for the daily schedule, after you wake up, you start with breakfast and maybe read a little devotional at the breakfast table. Then get ready for your day. This is a huge opportunity for habits, helping your child to do everything from get dressed to brush teeth to making his bed. This is a big habit training part. All right, and after you're ready for your day, go outside and play or go for a walk. Come in and have a snack, and then you would do whatever your weekly schedule called. So if it's Monday, after your snack, you would go to the library. If it's Tuesday after your snack, you would just stay home and play, and so on. All right, after your weekly schedule, you want to be done with whatever you're doing by lunch, so you can be home for lunch. At lunchtime, gather together for lunch and read a picture book aloud at the table. After that, if your child is still napping, you lucky people then you would have your child take their nap. Or if you're like me, you would just have a rest time where maybe they go in the room and read a little bit or play quietly, but it's the middle of your day where you sort of shut things down. I close all the curtains. I turn on quiet music. We really have a second morning. I even get another pot of coffee, which is so nice. All right. After that, you're going to want to wake up those senses and go outside and play again or go for a walk. Then your child will probably need a snack again. And after snack, you'll want to do some sort of sensory play. I talked a lot about sensory play in nurturing your preschooler's body, and there's a list of sensory activities. But just to repeat, if you missed that one, this could be, playing on a tabletop in a bucket of kinetic sand, or if you do Play-Doh, this would fit here, or musical instruments, anything that's really stimulating to the senses in a way that your child loves. You can also just play quiet music and color together. So really it's based on what your child's needs are. Be especially sensitive to this time if you have an outside the box child, because something might rev him up that usually calms other kids down. So really get to know what his interests are. All right, after sensory play, you would clean up, and then it's probably time for you to start dinner. So let your child be involved with that in some way. And then you have some family time. Usually dads come home from work around this time. Maybe you can trade off, have the preschoolers hang out with him for a little while, and just really focus on some family time. And then after that, you've got your bedtime routine, and make sure this includes Bible stories and read alouds. And we love, excuse me, my goodness, we love to read poetry aloud at bedtime too. So my daughter will get a Bible story, and then she'll pick a book, I'll pick a book, and then we read a couple of poems. And that getting into that routine is so good too. We'll even say, okay, and now for poems and sleep. And she knows that's it. There's not going to be more stories. Now is the time. And she'll just roll over and close her eyes. So get into a routine like that. That will help you with bedtime if that's a struggle as well. Okay. Another note, if you are doing therapy with your child, so perhaps you're doing an in-home therapy program like the Sunrise program. If you don't know what that is, why don't you head back after this episode and check out the episode where I talk about what is the Sunrise program. It is an in-home therapy program, so it can very easily be integrated with your life. You're not having to drive anywhere to go to it. But if you're doing therapy, I've had lots of success putting therapy time after snack time. So this way, the child has had time to move his body outside and refueled some of his calories, and then it will help him work better. So if you're going to do 2 sessions of therapy, maybe that therapy time replaces your weekly schedule for a while, or maybe your child's at a point where he only needs a few days. But try to be scheduling it after snack time, but before lunch, and then again in the afternoon. Sensory play, depending on what you're doing, could work into your therapy program, or you could replace it with some of your therapy goals. All right, now for a reality check. This schedule looks really pretty on paper. You're not reading it on paper, but it sounds really pretty, I bet. But I'm sure you realize that our week does not always look like this. For instance, there's no screen time listed on the schedule, but sometimes my kids watch shows during the week. I try to aim for calm, enriching shows. Scholastic, the book company, the publishing company, they do a really great series of DVDs where they're just reading the book aloud and the pictures are moving. The Jesus Storybook Bible that I mentioned in the last podcast for Nurturing the Soul, they have a DVD that is just the storybook Bible being read aloud with the pictures in motion. So those are some really neat choices. But you want to make sure that it's nothing real overstimulating. So if you choose to let your little ones watch a show, I recommend that you do it during rest time or somewhere between the afternoon snack and sensory play. And this is going to give you enough separation from bedtime so as not to disturb sleep. All right, and a special note for the mama raising a small village. I want to speak especially to you moms with multiple kiddos under the age of 5. So do you know what you really need right now besides a free nanny and a housekeeper and a cook? A little grace. This is a very special season for you and your family. A very special and a very demanding one. When my boys were 3, 3, and 2, or 4, 4, and 3, or even 5, 5, and 4, we had some pretty arduous days. Add 2 autism diagnoses and a sensory-seeking child with ADHD. And let me tell you, there were days that the TV stayed on way too long, the house was trash, and I was crying before lunch. While you should be gentle on yourself, also be sure to equip yourself. That's one of my passions with what I do with my podcast and my blog. I wish I had someone reaching out to me during that time, because you just are so very overwhelmed. And you need to know how to recover from that. So even nowadays, our schedule might go out the window some days, but I always have one hanging on the fridge so that I can get back on track. You want to keep your goal in mind. You want to make sure that you're coming back to what you've set apart in the quiet, peaceful moments. Once you get into the chaos, you go back to what you've made a decision on during the peaceful times. This is especially important after the holidays, a sickness, or other big stretches of time when life is a bit of a free-for-all. Truth be told, our best days are the ones when we do stick closer to our routine. But there's a balance between your sanity and the daily schedule that needs to happen. If you find yourself feeling suffocated by your schedule, that might be a red flag that your schedule's too demanding. It's left the routine realm and it's going into you being a servant to the schedule, and you don't want that. So you might have to reevaluate and get rid of some things. Or if you feel like you're playing Tetris and you're at the top of the screen and all the blocks are falling at once and you can't figure out where to put them, you might need to just cancel out your afternoon and go for a walk or play Legos or bake cookies or whatever, and just catch your breath and start fresh in the morning. And we've had plenty of days like that. Also, try to get some help from family and friends during this time and take care of yourself. If you've got family around, this might be a great time to ask if, grandma could take her to the library for the story hour. Or if you don't have family and friends around, which we, for most of those years, did not. We lived in a different state. This is a great time to join MOPS or do something where you're in a community and you are also getting help. So if you don't know what MOPS is, it stands for Mothers of Preschoolers. Many churches have this program. We would meet twice a month and they have free childcare. And then the moms would hang up upstairs and, you'd get to fellowship and talk and just kind of get recharged and get free babysitting for a couple hours. So it's a genius idea. So try to find something like that where you are getting a little bit of a breather so that you can gas up and be more available for your children. I promise, though, it does get easier as they get older. So hang in there, moms with a little village of littles. All the time and effort that you're putting in now will pay off later, I promise. So that is it for our series on preschool. After this, we are going to move into more school age focus. We're going to talk more about Charlotte Mason. We're going to talk more about therapies. I am, by the grace of God, going to be having some really great people to interview in 2019. That's the goal. So keep listening. And if you've not subscribed yet, please subscribe. If you have subscribed, why don't you leave me a review? That would totally make my day if you could say how much you love the podcast, so then other moms could be equipped and encouraged just like you. That wraps it up for this episode of Homeschooling Outside the Box. Again, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.